Oh, hi. I have two questions. My name is Jennifer. I'm with the Fiscal Times. First question is the long-term and short-term effects of the spill. Obama was saying that within 3 years or so, the wetland marshes will sort of resume back to normalcy. And also, can you talk about the dead zone and what that really means? And you know, I guess if that's something that will expand.
Well,
what does it mean? Like the dead zone, is nothing can ever grow there, or is that
I'll answer the your second question first. The dead zone is mislabeled. There are living things there, but it's an area, a large area of low oxygen that results from a series of phenomena, but primarily is dependent upon the release of a large amount of nutrients from the Mississippi River into the nearshore waters, and the capping of the waters underneath by fresh water. So we end up with the depletion of oxygen in the water column. And this very low hypoxic, anoxic water ends up preventing most things from living there. And it's been growing over the decades now because our nutrient supply that's coming out of the Mississippi River has continually increased. There are dead zones that have occurred naturally all along the coast, usually as a result of spring meltwater bringing down organic material all along bays and estuaries on the coast. But the magnitude we have now is artificially high. So how will that interact with the oil spill? Well, at least the oil in those particular areas won't be killing many animals because there won't be many there. Your first question was, how long will there be effects of the current spill?
Right, the marshlands. Obama's saying 3 years. Is that correct?
I'd say that's really optimistic, wildly optimistic. I worked in the Exxon Valdez. I lived in Alaska for 23 years, and I worked on that project for about 10 years after the spill. There are still 21,000 gallons of oil in the subtidal beaches of Alaska, Prince William Sound. You can stick your hand into it. It's still in a thick molasses form. It's under the rocks, but it's there where sea otters dig up clams. It's there to affect the clams. It's still having, it's among the most toxic residues, so it's still having great effects. There's still litigation ongoing from there. There are many species that have not yet recovered, both seabirds, fishes, and marine mammals that have not recovered from the Exxon Valdez spill. That was a very different spill. That was on the surface. That was kind of like a big heart attack, 11 million gallons all at once. We're having at least 1 million gallons a day spilling out from 5,000 feet deep, plus all of these deep water plumes resulting. So we don't really know how long things are going to last here.
Yes.
Joe.
Sulima Palacio with Voice of America Television. We have been talking a lot about what we can see, but the oil spill is sitting on a huge and large extension of deep sea corals, and corals that are many, many levels. Do we know the behavior of the oil, how much of it is staying down there, and for how long is it going to be toxic over the corals? What is the future of those corals that have taken hundreds of years to grow?
Well, in fact, some of the corals that we measured ages of on seamounts in the Pacific Ocean, and I was on those cruises, particularly off Hawaii, the deep corals, and these are not the same kinds of corals that form coral reefs. These are non-reef forming corals, but they're very important habitat. They can cover acres of it. Looks like a brushland down there, and they're all full of animals, and these are all colonies of animals. But some of those corals we measured off in the deep waters off Hawaii were more than 4,000 years of age. So these in the Gulf, because they're in somewhat warmer water, but still 2 to 4 degrees centigrade at these great depths, are still very long-lived species. We don't know how much oil is down there. Oil floats, so most of the oil is going to come to the surface. But in the form of these micro droplets, it seems to be staying in these deep plumes. Some of those plumes will impact benthic communities, the animals that live on the bottom, as these plumes come up onto the shelf. Particularly in the areas like the pinnacles. The pinnacles are a drowned coral reef that was a thriving reef-forming coral back 12 to 18,000 years ago during the Pleistocene. Now it's great habitat. You can think of it as a subsea mountain. It's habitat for fishes, for corals, for sponges. You can go on YouTube, you can Google it. You can go on, we fondly call Google Ocean, but it's ocean in Google Earth. Right around the spill, you can find these sites. You can click on and see videos. You can look at still camera shots of lots of these marine lives down there. So did I answer your question? As much as we know, we don't really know how much oil is down there, but there will be effects.
Does anybody else on our panel want to comment on that? To the microphone.
I'll just make a quick comment and a question related to the marshes and the 3-year. I think I know the source of that comment and advice. Many of you may not. Katrina resulted in large oil spills, the Murphy oil spill to be exact, in St. Bernard Parish. And so a lot of, I think, the comments about the response of the Louisiana coastal wetlands is associated with some of the responses that we saw, and that's some of the advice and some of the context of the 3-year time period. And there was some recovery in those marshes and wetlands of that site in that sort of 3-year time frame. But let me tell you what the issue is here related to that. That's not, it is biological because it has to do with the context of this, what we call stable or sustainable wetlands. This landscape sinks, right? And it's natural sinking of the delta. And it sinks at about the rate at which sea level is rising in some areas. So we actually get the double whammy, if you will. If our water levels in our wetlands rise a certain amount each year, that's a combination of the rising seas and the sinking land. A healthy marsh actually can keep up with that change in water levels and maintain basically its chin above water, if you will. Because if there's any deficit in growth potential of those wetlands, then it loses that margin that it needs, and basically those wetlands drown. And that's why we've lost 2,000 square miles of wetlands in this landscape, because the sediment from the river that usually compensates for that building process doesn't occur, and our wetlands drown. When you have an oil spill such as this and the plants aren't allowed or have a capacity to grow, then that's another deficit, basically, of that margin these wetlands need to compensate for a rising water level. That's, again, associated with land sinking and sea level rising. So I think that is where we are really concerned, is the extensive nature of this spill across the coast, and that inability of wetlands. And again, this is all speculation. We don't know what the full expanse and extension and given a hurricane what that will be. But it's almost like an opportunity cost to a fisherman. There's cost of not being able to, of income. In our wetlands, there's a cost of not being able to grow. And the impact of that may challenge that 3-year, and that we won't know until the oil spill actually plays out.
There was a hand over here somewhere.